Let me tell you guys about Belly Up Sports. Belly Up Sports is the internet sports bar. Go ahead and check out their website, www.bellyupsports.com, to read some great articles from great writers all across the country, from hockey, baseball, golf, soccer, you name it. Belly Up Sports is the premier, not your average website. It's episode 1. Episode title was Back to Glory, and the summary is Amid Messi Mania. I like how they use it. Miami and LA Galaxy gear up for a huge early season test. Riqui Puig opens up from the pressure of superstar expectations. So yeah, LA Galaxy, Miami. What else that needs to be said about when it comes down to it?
Yeah, I think in all honesty, man, I think that first game last season, for all of us MLS sickos out there remember it well. I think the narrative around that game, if I remember correctly, was really, really focused on Puig coming back to play against the teammates that he never really got a firm chance to play with at Barcelona, right? It was more of that, like him living in Messi's shadow. And you got that a little bit kind of throughout the episode, right? He even mentions it himself a couple times, how he tends to get the same questions around Messi, his time playing with Messi, what it's like to play with him. That really was a lot of the narrative, but I like how they chose to spin it for episode one on the storytelling side, on the content side, right? Of course, with Goals TV, we're all about that, right? Content that brings fans in. I think they did a really good job with that. I think from my perspective, like when I was watching it, because I took some notes too. I watched this episode probably at least a couple times, and I felt like again it was, and I think they might have actually said it one time throughout the whole episode where when you think about how you want to tell this story, Messi has to be part of it. What narrative can you build around that? I think they picked the perfect one. You have the OG brand, and for those who haven't followed MLS since MLS 1.0, right, since the late 90s, Galaxy, you ask any other foreign football fan anywhere across the world, what team they know from Major League Soccer, it is always the LA Galaxy. Like there were a lot of times, I mean, 10, 15 years ago where LA Galaxy were more famous than Major League Soccer as a brand. Like more fans just knew them. So I think the narrative was perfect. You literally get the Galacticos of MLS up into a certain point most recently, right? With some of the down years that Galaxy have had, but still much of their history is embedded in bringing some of the world's biggest talents to Major League Soccer and being the team on the West Coast, right? The Hollywood team that, usually wins titles, but if not, it just really is the global brand of the league versus the new Galacticos, right? And it's so weird even peeling that layer back because Messi has been the antithesis of that throughout much of his career. Much of his career, he was fighting Real Madrid in La Liga as the people's champ, right? As like the pride of Barcelona, the anti-establishment team, right? Like that's always what he was. And now it's like, bro, the storyline they're building through Apple TV is firmly, bro, he's helping to build the Real Madrid moving forward of Major League Soccer, and he's at the heart of all of it, right? Like this is his team. He's at the heart of all of it. You heard the backroom staff around those guys and what they want to build. So anyway, without going into too much further detail, then we'll talk about that. I think the narrative they pushed, OG Galacticos versus the new one, and how that will continue to shape itself as more fans catch on to MLS. To me, that was awesome.
No, yeah, I think the fact that you brought up, and that was actually my first note, was the Super Club of yesterday versus the Super Club of today. Because yeah, that's part of LA Galaxy's history from, even the most recent dynasty that they had, which was obviously Landon Donovan, um, David Beckham. You got Robbie Keane, and even then you could sprinkle in a lot of legends of the game being able to play here. Stevie G, probably not as memorable, but Stevie G was here. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, the all-time, bought a page out of the newspaper, said you're welcome. Kind of, but the names always come to the Galaxy, and it kind of starts from David Beckham, I think. Um, for the longest, I mean, yeah, LA Galaxy has always had a good group of players. You think of Carlos Ruiz. I know you think more so for FC Dallas, but still, he did have that what was it, golden goal in the MLS Cup that one year. Don't remember what year it was, but it was back when they had the yellow kits, the OG yellow and green kits, which makes me think of Kobe Jones more than anything else. Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that LA Galaxy has always been the standard of MLS. And while Inter Miami maybe is not essentially yet the standard, but everyone believes they are the standard of MLS, if that makes any sense.
It does, bro. You have to imagine in this day and age, there are more Inter Miami kits all around the world being worn by fans today than LA Galaxy, period. You heard them say it, right? The highest selling jersey in the world by any one individual team is the pink Messi jersey for Miami. And it makes sense, bro. I have one in my closet, right? For a number of reasons. I'm a massive Messi fan and I get one from every team he's on. But also, again, this is just such a historic thing for the best player in the world to be here. But yeah, I mean, you can't ignore it. Like the Barca boys, they are very much a super team. And Apple TV is doing, I think so far, from what I've seen, a really good job of pitting them against, the OG super team. And it's crazy how they're helping you. They're almost, again, I've never, not that I've ever had a grudge against LA Galaxy, but they've been the team you want to hate, right? The evil empire. If you've watched MLS for longer than a few seasons, I would say, longer than a few seasons, probably the last decade or so, you naturally would just never feel any sort of, I don't know, empathy for LA Galaxy fans because they're the winningest club, winningest team in Major League Soccer. So, and it's now kind of crazy how this docuseries is starting kind of to pull me in their direction a little bit, right? Empathize with what they're building now versus what they built previously, all due to what has happened in the last couple seasons with Messi Mania. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think that segues right into, I mean, once again, you're talking about Inter Miami and LA Galaxy, and I think when you talk about that past, last year, you saw two completely different type of styles of player acquisition. Obviously Inter Miami is the Messi and friends kind of thing, and it's kind of funny now because I'm like, I guess maybe Messi is the LeBron James of soccer because he's basically doing what LeBron does. If anybody knows anything about the NBA, LeBron everywhere he went, he made sure he got his buddies on the team. He actually got to pick the coach he wanted on the team. As a matter of fact, JJ Redick is currently the coach of the Lakers. Has he ever coached an NBA team before? No. And,
Yeah.
and they literally have a podcast together. So, I mean, that doesn't get LeBron and friends, Messi and friends. I mean, Mascherano is now the manager of Inter Miami. Does he have any first team coaching experience? No.
No.
But which well, mirror for mirror. I didn't expect that this was where we were going.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree. And to kick off the episode, man, I think they did a good job of building up that narrative, right? Starts off with Miami. Automatically, you have to go right to where Messi and friends are located, get a feel for Miami as they pan into it. You're hearing from Beckham, you're hearing from Jorge Mas, their whole front office. I think what really stuck out to me, like in that opening, let's say 10 minutes where they kind of went back and forth between Miami and the Galaxy. I think Miami first, right? Even right? Herculez Gomez kind of sets the table for it and just says, it shows you what they're going after, right? They have to win it all. And if you don't, it's a massive failure. And we'll talk about that, right? I mean, we all know what happens at the end of the season. But I think building up to that point will be really interesting because I think Miami had a very up and down 2024. Anybody can kind of tell you that Messi was out for more than a few games, the way a season ended and playoffs, all of those things kind of built. We're building up to that, but with setting the table, they show just how much pressure is on this team now to win everything, and I think they know that, right? They also mentioned the players know that. That's been the case everywhere they've gone. Can't think of whether it's club or national team, every place or any place these players have played, any match they've played as a professional over the last 10 to 15 years has meant quite a bit, right? For just even retaining their status as the best group of individual players on the planet. So and then again, going back and forth between that and Will Kuntz talking about what the Galaxy used to be versus what they are today, and the strategy behind it. And again, we're getting to hear this from the person who should have won the MLS front office member of the year. He didn't. I have no idea how anybody from Sporting Kansas City won that award. But here we are, right? Will Kuntz kind of breaking it down for us. And yeah, man, I think he described perfectly. If you hadn't watched MLS ever, you just want to know about the Galaxy, I think he gave a great history lesson while also showing you how that strategy has completely gone the opposite direction over recent years, really out of necessity.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, when we were covering last year, we talked about what LA Galaxy was doing. We said it was no longer the days of the evil empire acquiring older, you know, icon players in some sense. If obviously maybe use the word icon a little loosely on that one, but
Yeah.
players that everybody knew of, LA Galaxy-esque. Like this is the guy that's going. Like no, if you heard a big name, that name was going to the LA Galaxy. Obviously, even in during like kind of the dip in the LA Galaxy, they went and got Chicharito. They were going after the names. I mean, Douglas Costa, even though that panned out as great as my last diet. Like it's just kind of what it was. But and I think that was honestly what he said. He's like, yeah, we're gonna go for some good signings, but we're not gonna we're done with the whole old guard. Let's go.
Hmm.
Let's get young and let's get fast. And they did exactly that when they got Joseph Paintsil and Gabby Peck, which those guys were instrumental not only for the LA Galaxy, but also to develop Riqui Puig, which LA Galaxy did mention. Their goal was to make Riqui Puig the guy for LA Galaxy because they believed in him, and I think that is kind of where we go into Riqui Puig's like backstory for his time at Barcelona. And obviously you're the Barca fan, you're the one that I'm sure you knew of Riqui Puig, and I mean I knew of him as well, but obviously he was still that guy that was coming off the bench, but you saw La Masia. Like I mean he's your typical La Masia graduate, and unfortunately just has a fallout with Barcelona.
Yeah, man, I think it was interesting how they chose to tell that story, right? The only problem I had with it, excuse me, the only problem I had with it was the beginning narrative. Like this idea that Riqui Puig was legitimately one of the best youngsters in the world, and he was rubbing shoulders with Messi, and I don't know what you were doing at 18. I was in high school, but he was kind of again, almost Lamine Yamal type of hype out of pundits and personalities here in the US and in MLS. Whereas I think if you really followed this club, Riqui Puig was not necessarily on any strong path to being the future of Barcelona. That was never, it was supposed to be there. And even like other guys similar, right? Like a Sergio Roberto, for example, who did make a significantly greater impact at Barcelona than Riqui Puig. And that just tells you everything you need to know about Ricky's career. It's not that he wasn't good enough. I think Maurice Edu in the episode mentioned something like it something was missing. And that's kind of the best way to put it. Is like Ricky had a lot of the technical qualities. He had, I think he grew up in La Masia. He knows exactly what's expected of players who come through, make it to the first team. He was, I think, at on some level, kind of good enough, but kind of feels like Pablo Torre right now for Barcelona in a sense that you're just never going to really see him play. Like he's a good baller, but whether it's due to physicality, mentality, something in between, he just never really had it and was never able to crack into. Yeah, sure. One of the best teams in the history of the sport. Messi led. Busi was still in his prime, right? Albo's still there. Suarez, all these guys. I understand that, but I just feel like, yeah, I'm not underrating Ricky Puig. I think he's a fantastic player. I want him to stay in MLS as long as possible. I just think some of that narrative was a little bit of fluff, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of hype. When in reality, if you watch La Liga, he just didn't play all that much at the end
No,
of the day.
and I think that's exactly it. I think he was he's not bad, but obviously he's not starting 11 of Barcelona. If it, and I think still as far as like as a player, and I think he comes in, as soon as you saw him on the MLS pitch, you saw a guy that was just very much ahead of everybody else, and that's more towards the development that the U.S. that just kind of dictates more about the development here in the U.S. where he is very technically sound. Obviously, Spain technical ability is always going to be overvalued over athleticism. Not saying that Ricky Puig is not athletic. I mean, the guy was still playing on a torn ACL. I don't think any regular human being could say they could do that.
Yep.
Um, but I think for Barcelona, I think when he came into US and one, he's not a big dude,
At all.
and I think that that's kind of where you see now where US soccer development, all they care about is guys that are fast and big and strong. And once again, overvaluing athleticism over technical ability, which is a whole rabbit hole that I'm not trying to get into when it comes to uh, U.S. soccer development. But
Yeah.
and you know what? You brought up Maurice Edu, and I think yeah, he talked about everything that you would want from Riqui Puig. Like he did have the creativity, he does have the IQ. You said that there's something missing. I love that Edu for some reason had to point out that he's a good looking guy. um,
Bro, he is. I mean, to be fair, Ricky is a good looking dude. I think,
we
you
need
know,
to lift each other up, man. We need to start doing that as men. We need to just stay strong, my king. Kind of
yeah,
thing. But
absolutely, bro, absolutely. I will say though, I mean, yeah, I kind of, if I'm maybe I'm reading too much into this, Mo. If I am, let me know. I hope it's fine that I call you Mo. I think with what he was saying was like it almost feels like it's on brand for the Galaxy. It's almost like what you expect of a Hollywood team. Like they're just gonna be like the prettier of the bunch. They're gonna look like maybe little male models or whatever. And Ricky, bro, to talk about little, right? Like not just seeing him during some of the photos and still images of him during his rehab, but like even bro, seeing him like again, whether they were cooking out with the carne asada or they were in the locker room before the game started, he's even smaller than I kind of see on the pitch when you watch him on screen. Like the dude is tiny, bro. Like it's honestly amazing he made it through the entire 2024 season, and really probably only got this season long injury just due to sheer workload and minutes. I mean, he was everything for the Galaxy. So, but bro, he's even smaller than I anticipated, which I think says everything it needs to say.
yeah, and once again, I think yeah, I think that this was kind of MLS's way to take jabs at Barcelona because obviously they have the storyline that Xavi was the guy that kind of pushed Riqui Puig. I also probably contextually as well, Barcelona was going through quite the financial struggle at the time. Obviously now they're in a better place. We had Hoffet here saying that you guys are back into a 1-in-1 ratio for your guys' spending,
That's been
which
forever, by the way, since we had that. Most clubs have that. We haven't had that like half a decade, so that's a huge W.
So context wise, at that time, Barcelona was trying to offload as much as they can, what meanwhile trying to retain. And unfortunately, I think Riqui Puig was a guy that was good enough that was gonna get offers, and in Barcelona was viewed as not as big of a loss, kind of similar to like Cucurella, the list of names of other guys that ended up leaving Barcelona due to a
Hmm.
similar reason where you guys are good, teams clearly like you. We don't necessarily need you. I think we have something here, and I think that that's kind of what happened for his case. So I don't think it was necessarily him being pushed out. Obviously, the narrative is that Xavi, which I'm sure at this point any Barca fan will still want to forget his time as a manager. I mean, you still want a La Liga, and despite all that,
Yeah, I will say I actually was someone who real just for full context, right? As a Barcelona fan, I was one who said our time with Xavi needed to come to an end, not because of he was a bad manager. In fact, statistically, and even with trophies in his first 3 seasons as a manager, he's done more than most managers who have come through Barcelona. Um, I just felt like he hadn't been experienced enough as a manager to help get Barcelona back to what they were identity wise. I don't think so. I think Xavi understands how much pressure there is to win games at Barcelona, and he cared most about that. So did the board. And at the end of the day, so did the majority of fans. But for me, the identity of this club, how we choose to play the game, means the world. And for that reason, I thought it was time to move on. I don't want to go to the whole Hansi Flick conversation because like, obviously it's worked out really well. But I think at the time, that is the context that you were talking about, Hector, is bro, we had to get rid of players. And here's the thing. We have struggled with this over the last 5 years for a number of reasons. But one of the biggest ones is that, bro, without sounding like Barcelona is just at the absolute best club or destination for any player on the planet, it legitimately is in a lot of ways that have nothing to do with the football being played over there. Barcelona is just, frankly, a fantastic city to live in. The weather is great year round. It can feel like a vacation. There's so many players who we've tried to push out over the years, and it's been very difficult to get them to terminate contracts, to get them to agree to some sort of an extension that sees them exit the club sooner or prepares them for a market bid. Right, the most recent one, Dembele, before we sold him to PSG, for that ridiculous release clause, we had to find a way to restructure all of that because, frankly, as his contract was coming down, he didn't want to resign. Barcelona was going through a number of things. We were threatening to put him in the stands. There were a lot of rumors Riqui Puig wanted to stay at Barcelona. He didn't see himself leaving the club. It was his boyhood club, the town he grew up in, very comfortable. So there was a lot of change happening, and I think the board had to make tough decisions. What I didn't like about the docuseries was they made it seem like it was more Xavi's fault than Barcelona's. I think it's the opposite. I think Xavi, one, played with Riqui Puig at least a little bit or saw him come up in the academy. Xavi's always been a very big proponent of La Masia. I don't think it ever would have been a personal thing. And I don't think he ever would have agreed with pushing him out the way that they did. I think it was more the board of Barcelona saying, hey, we don't have a choice here. Our finances need to get corrected ASAP. He has to go now. Do whatever it takes to have him out the door now. And that's the way it played out. But for those who aren't familiar or want to demonize maybe Barcelona or Xavi, I just want to make sure you guys are pointing the finger at the right person, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think also uh obviously you mentioned the carne asada that they had where like Ricky Puig was talking about how he tries his best to get the players together, and obviously one of the quotes that he said was that he felt that LA Galaxy is more of a family than Barcelona. And funny enough, I immediately thought of tactical manager when he had his interview with Eddie Johnson. And he talked about the difference versus of Europe versus MLS, where in Europe they're like, no, I'm not gonna talk to you, man. You're trying to take my job. Versus here in the MLS, it's like, hey, let me grab your keys for you, buddy. Like, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I mean, obviously, I can't tell you. I've never been to Europe. I don't know what the mentality is in Europe is as far as a club goes. And obviously, we know it's a more competitive product, obviously. But MLS, I can definitely give you a good idea of what's it like to be in a locker room there, and it is very relaxed. And I don't want to say it's because it's the lack of pressure. I think that that's dumb. I mean, you're still competing. Your goal is still to win a championship. Um, I think as far as American sports, I think it's always been the locker room is kind of like your safe haven. That's where you get to just be guys being guys, and then when it's time to get on the field, it's time to put in work. So I think it's a whole different. Americans probably view it a little bit differently, in some aspect. I don't think, even in American sports, last thing a quarterback wants to do is train the guy that's supposed to be taking his job. So it's the same thing in everywhere else. But I think for Barcelona, and maybe because of how relaxed that locker room is, it is more of a family. Once again, I can't tell you what the Barca locker room is like. I've never been in the Barca locker room, but um, it does. I mean, but I think it's great for Ricky to if he's going to be the guy for LA Galaxy to be able to, invite guys to his home and uh have a Spanish dish that apparently the meat wasn't as good as the ones in Barcelona. So
Yeah, I caught that little jab too. I was like, well, I mean, at the end of the day, we like it, so it is what it is. No, I think that stuck out to me too. I think for a number of reasons, I think it's just an American culture thing, a sports culture thing. Because I think it's the same down in Mexico. I think if anybody's ever watched the Chivas docuseries by Netflix, the opening episode, I can't remember what year it is that they fail to qualify for the playoffs, and the Chivas owner marches into the locker room, middle of a post game discussion, right, and tears the entire team a new one. The owner, right, not the manager, the owner coming down and basically making it about the investment he's made into them as a unit, into that team to make sure they can win and do all these things to the fans and how they're letting him down. I think that's again, right? It's this, I think, similar pressure that you might see in other countries where this sport is the preeminent sport. I won't say number one because number one means something to a lot of different people, but I will say the preeminent sport that's where the seriousness around it, the pressure around it is truly embedded into everyday life for so many people. Not that it's again, not to say it's not pressure when the time comes here in MLS. I just think that it's more of we're going to accomplish this together. We can only do this if we're in it together. And that message all comes from the type of manager you have within your side versus the historical prestige of a club like Barcelona and realizing that no matter what happens, no matter what adversity they face, they have to end up number one. Two is not acceptable. And on top of that, right, the biggest rival that you have is arguably the most successful club in the history of the game. So the pressure's on every single season. And that's just, for a number of reasons, whether it's not having pro rel or anything else, not the case here. So again, I wouldn't put so much focus on that. I just think culturally we're more welcoming, open to this as part of being a brotherhood to win seasons and win championships versus we're just going to be the best team and that's why we're going to steamroll everybody.
Yeah, I think that's perfect for it. But obviously this leads to the game, right? LA Galaxy versus Inter Miami. I believe this was actually the opener for
Yeah.
the MLS season. So, um, and there was a lot going on. Obviously, this is David Beckham's return to Carson, California, a stadium that literally has a statue of him,
Hmm.
from obviously the dynasty that he was a part of with once again with Robbie Keane and Landon Donovan. Even though I kind of don't like saying that name, but. But yeah, obviously that's the big part, right? And once again, when you have to talk about Messi, you have to talk about David Beckham because I don't think you get Messi if David Beckham doesn't come to MLS, leaving from Real Madrid to LA Galaxy, and then obviously part of his contract was I need to own an MLS team at some point this year at an agreed upon number. And, that was what changed everything. He was determined to bring Miami a team. He got Miami a team. And, obviously, maybe not so great at the beginning, but the goal was always to bring Messi to Miami. And he got it done. And obviously, this leads into the great Messi slash Miami. I'm gonna keep it that way. Glazing that we saw. Even the players were poking fun at it. They were saying, "Yeah, we're probably gonna see a bunch of pink kids over at the stadium. There'll probably be more pink kids than white kids at the stadium." And I thought that it was funny that even the players know that this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah. And even again, when I feel like when they talk about this too, you can see Ricky in the corner, right? Just kind of being like, yeah, I know, guys. Like it's someone who like you felt like he had just been so experienced with this already, right? Like anywhere Messi goes, he's just going to be the star of the show. And then you go take that into the game itself, bro. You can, I mean, the calls that were getting made, right? Like again, right? Like hearing Greg Vanney mention to the sideline referee that, I'm willing to bet if that was Messi who got, hacked down that play, that would have been a yellow every day of the week, right? It's like I would have put everything I have on it. It just shows you, right, that Messi mania, while I think it's calmed down quite a bit, you could just see how exhausting that whole fucking narrative was to start off last season and all the way throughout, right? Throughout the entire year. Doesn't matter what type of argument, even that we would make, right? Doing content together. Doesn't matter what obstacles were in the way of Miami. It's like because they have Messi, they have this cheat code that's just going to allow them to win every single game they play. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter what the context is. I think that in itself, if I was a Galaxy fan, I'd be like, let's just go in there and shut these fucking guys up, man. Let's just do it. Like I want to go in there and just I love Messi to death as a fan, but I would say this part of the first episode kind of summarizes my feelings about Miami throughout the course of the 2024 season. It was just so easy to make them the team that we all love to hate. And at the same time, the last thing I'll say is just I now have this newfound respect for Greg Vanney. The guy should have won Coach of the Year last year. He just should have. Like plain and simple. Like I would have loved to play for someone like Greg Vanney, and I feel like there's so
It
many
should have been the
instances
LA
throughout this.
Galaxy sweep, man. It should
It
have been the
really
guy.
should have been. Yeah, it
You
really
can't
should have
go
been.
from where they were in 2022 to how they finished it. Literally almost had the first seed and then ended up winning the MLS Cup. Like that turnaround does not happen without a good front office and with a guy that the front office literally did not give up on. They knew that this was the right guy despite the awful season that they had. And yeah, Greg Vanney, once again, like we got some glimpses of how the training sessions are. Obviously, we don't get a full idea of how the training sessions were,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I think he was the right guy. Obviously, former LA Galaxy guy, and through and through, and just as ambitious as the club is, he's also wanting that because he's got some of that success from his previous time in stake as well. And yeah, but yeah, the first it was just wild. Just when you see the stadium going into it, you see the Miami fans, you saw the LA Galaxy fan that was tailgating takes his sweater off, and you just see a fat Messi on it, and he's a Galaxy
Yeah.
supporter. You got the kid with the Miami with the Messi kid saying that his uncle's gonna be crying when his other Galaxy team loses. It was, and then also the most wildest thing I ever saw was in the stadium. Someone put out somebody drew this, made a sign where they had Messi literally spanking Riqui Puig, which that
Yep.
was just wild to me. Um, it's your home
Insane, bro.
stadium. It's your home stadium, and
I
this is happening in your home stadium.
I don't know, bro. In all honesty, if I'd been one of the Galaxy fans there at the stadium, I don't know. I would have found a way to like I don't know, man. I get depending on who's holding that sign. If it's a grown ass person, I don't know, accidentally finding a way to destroy that shit or tear it up or something. I
Oops,
don't know.
my beer spilled.
Yeah, my beer spilled, bro. I don't know, but there's no fucking way that I'm gonna let some random away fan come in and just like I don't know, just react with some stupid shit. And most importantly, bro, like coming after your marquee player, using Messi because you can't. What argument are you gonna have against that? Yeah, Messi should spank Ricky Puig. In all honesty, he should, but you're not bringing that into my stadium and hanging it on me like that. No way.
Yeah, and it was actually like hung in the stadium. Like it was like no one fought this. Like it was just there. Maybe, later on in the match, maybe it happened. But yeah, I think that, and what's funny is like, it's funny because I think of like how I don't understand. At one point, I felt like I didn't understand the hate for Wrexham. How everyone was just like, they hate Wrexham. And like now, kind of when I see the way Miami is right now, and like, we're like, oh, you're just rooting for this team because it has Messi in it. If Messi wasn't there, you guys wouldn't give a shit about Miami. And then, you look at Wrexham, you're like, oh, okay, I see. If you guys didn't have Ryan Reynolds, you'd still be back down in the fifth division. But
Yeah. It's true. It's true to an extent. I think I'll have a little more respect for Wrexham because there's only so much you can do as a flashy, new owner, right? But to bring that like that perfect analogy to be LeBron and bring your friends down to a part of the country that hasn't even had an MLS side in so long, right? Miami Fusion were part of the OG, the most OG version of American soccer to an extent, but in modern day Major League Soccer have not had a franchise in forever, if ever. And then not only has the franchise only been around for so long, but on top of that, they're getting the world's best player and three of his best teammates in history all on one team at one time. Like, it's hard for me to empathize with that. Like, you should win everything. I'm not going to glaze you because you guys should win everything. And if you don't, I'm going to be the loudest one out there. Like, it's just one of those where like I don't feel any sort of need to cheer this team on. I don't know. Again, maybe I'm a hipster. I have no idea, but I can't look at all this glazing they're getting and be like, yeah,
I, I I
it's
think
okay.
it
It's okay.
I think it just stems from the fact that like people that weren't Miami fans are now Miami fans, and it's because of Messi. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's what. But like, I think the part for me is when Messi leaves, and he's gonna leave at some point. Obviously, he's not getting any younger. Um, when he leaves, my question would be, are you still going to be a Miami fan?
I hope
And
so.
I would, and that's my answer, right? I hope so. But deep down, there's gonna be a fall off, and that's gonna be which is similar to LeBron. Whenever he leaves his team, they fall out. And I think Messi is the LeBron James of soccer. I think it's official, guys. Sorry, Pulley, you never were, but you really weren't ever that guy. But Messi, I mean, because of just this, and you're saying, and it's kind of interesting how you mentioned like earlier how Messi has always been the guy that from the team that builds from within, doesn't have to go. I mean, aside from maybe pick a guy every once in a while like a Zlatan or a Luis
Suarez
Suarez,
or yeah.
but normally it's the team that, hey, here's this 16-year-old, go, and then all of a sudden be a pain in my ass, and so like it's, versus Real Madrid, who is just like, F it, let's get this guy, kind of, it's always been that way, and you mentioned that, and I think seeing Messi now in Miami, and now he is doing those things that what Real Madrid would do, like it is kind of, I guess you live long enough to see yourself become the villain in some sense because people now, I don't think they hate Messi, they just hate Miami, but obviously Messi by proxy.
Yeah, I think it's what they stand for. I think there was a when they were talking to Jorge Mas in this episode one, and the front office staff, there was something he mentioned in terms of their strategy that really stuck out to me. It was how do we identify the top 75 or 100 players in the world at any one moment in time and get 20 to 25% of them into this league via Inter Miami. And I think that's it lets you know that this is why they got Messi, right? And this is why Jorge Mas says at the end of that whole little segment that if we fail to accomplish this, like there's like no one to blame but ourselves. Like it will be a massive disservice to us as individuals because you have the biggest tool to accomplish that goal in the world, named Lionel Messi, right? Like he can attract a lot of talent while he's here. And I think if you accomplish a lot while he's here, there's footsteps that players will want to follow in. And so, I think to continue this Galacticos era that started with Miami and the Barca boys down in Miami moving forward, I think they should be on pace to do it, but Messi will have to win. And that's why again, we're just gearing up for what we all know Real Madrid is today. That's what we're getting ready for the next 5 to 10 years, right? Is they're when they start going on their trophy run, it's probably going to last a little bit, and they're going to be even more hated, right? I think like that's really what this league needs too, if you think about it, right? They do need a Galacticos at their height to hate, to chase with a massive target on their back. Galaxy might want to be that with how young that they are and the team they've assembled, and we saw that, right? But it's kind of crazy now. They're the good guys. They're the FC Barcelona to counter the Galacticos that are being formed at Inter Miami's version of Real Madrid. It's just a really interesting narrative looking back now at 2024. And man, when they said at the end, right? This could be the MLS Cup final. I almost wish it was. Nothing against the Red Bulls, right? But I almost wish it really was. Like we had seen Inter Miami in that final against the Galaxy and what that final could have looked like. Maybe we'll get it this year. Who knows?
Yeah, and I mean we'll go right into the game, which was very good, very intense. I mean, Riqui Puig was literally putting the team on his back. You know, you heard Greg Vanny just like, I don't know why he keeps trying to do that pass. Like and I think that kind of shows like Riqui Puig, like he's like, I know I can hit this pass. I know I can do it. I'm not gonna give up on this play. I know once it hits, it's gonna hit. And even though Greg Vanny the whole time was just like, I don't know why this guy keeps doing this. He needs to move to something else. And once again, this shows like also like how I mean coaching preparation all that comes in is important leading to the game, but at the end of the day once it's game time it's following the game plan but also trusting your instincts and making the right decisions. And I think Riqui Puig, which is one of the reasons why he was brought to the LA Galaxy, was because of his vision, because of his decision making. And I mean you literally you know gave him two Ferraris to play with essentially with Gabby Peck and Paintsel. I mean, the guys are just speed demons. I mean, like there's nothing else to say about it. Um, but obviously the first and when you talk about putting all the pressure on him, a penalty comes into play, something that maybe many players would think is a routine move to do. A little too routine if you think about it, because
Yep.
Puig missed the penalty, and obviously you have that little highlight of Messi pointing to Drake Callender where that ball was going to go. And it was just kind of that moment where, like, Riqui, you're good. No one's denying your quality. Messi's just on a different level. The fact that he's like, I know I've seen this guy many times in practice. It's going right. Don't worry about
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, bro, it was crazy. Like, if anything, it like again, it shows you who daddy is, bro. At the end of the day, that like at the end of the day, that's Messi with comparison to a lot of players out there. But when you live in this guy's shadow, and then you decide to move to Major League Soccer, and this shadow you've been trying to avoid for years now comes back, right? And he's fucking there, the Grim Reaper, the boogeyman, right? And in y'all's first game against each other, he's then finding another way to plague you. Like it's just reminiscent of I imagine, bro, being a Real Madrid fan, Messi haunting you guys all those years. But I mean, putting that aside, I that moment was like I remember when they talked about it too. There was like that picture that floated around, like he pointed to where Calendar should go. I mean, I think Ricky in that game, it's crazy to see how much he's progressed from that individual moment. Because when you mentioned that part about, hey, Vanny's just getting tired of him trying to force that same through ball, that same home run pass that's going to open up the defense. It's like Riqui was probably doing so much, trying to be the guy, trying to carry the team on his back. Things that if he was just playing comfortable, he might not do, right? Things where if he was just playing comfortable, he may actually adjust properly to try some different looks, some different passes, trying collecting the ball in different parts of the field to keep the Miami defense on their toes and then unlock them that way, right? It's just crazy to see how much he's grown from that moment. But either way, a missed PK is a missed PK. And I still think no matter what, while you can look at it and say, hey, that was the goal that would have actually won them the game, he let the team down. I think there was probably, if you actually go back and watch the game in full, there was so much he was doing for the Galaxy all around. It was more of an unlucky moment for him.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of talking about like when it comes to midfielders, also kind of, I guess in some sense, also mentioning Rodri again. The stats are never gonna benefit a midfielder because, obviously, uh, key passes isn't a stat that gets followed too much in depth. It probably should be because obviously, if you're a creative playmaker, you're not always going to get the assist, but you definitely got the pass that led to that assist. And I think that's also, man, we need to have some hockey rules when it comes to assists. Not really, but I mean, it's also an important part of the game, which is why a lot of people gave Riqui Puig a shout for that. He should have had a shout for MVP because he was really he was the architect. He was the guy that was moving that attack. And once again, going back to what we said about the whole front office doing this different LA Galaxy, the new LA Galaxy, which was getting young and fast, and they got two young and fast players in Paintsel and Gabby Peck, and they were very much well showcased in this match. And obviously the second half, they go into halftime. Also, I just want to point out, I just love the image of Mark Delgado on the bike wearing glasses. I don't know why he was wearing glasses while he's on the bike. I guess he needs to get his vision back right. I know some people get blurry vision when they don't have their glasses on for long, but it was just like a funny. It was just Greg Van is doing his talk, and you just see Mark Delgado in the background just um wearing the glasses and on the bike, which it worked clearly because he got the assist. But I mean,
Yeah, true that, true that. It did. And bro, and not even just that. I mean, like how much again in 2025, how much do Galaxy fans miss someone like Delgado while Riqui Puig is out? And like I feel like watching that first episode, if you're watching it now, knowing what you know about match day one at MLS for 2025, as a Galaxy fan, you're probably like, damn, while this whole series I'm sure is going to smack because it ends in triumph for Galaxy fans, at the same time there's just constant reminders of just some of the pieces they've lost, right? Brugman, Delgado, Riqui Puig being injured. It's a very different look for this midfield in 2025. So I mean, just as I kind of watched through the game from the lens of this onside series, that stood out to me as well. Just like again, ended in a 1-1 draw.
and then Joveljic scores the goal too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Joveljic gone. Joveljic gets the goal from Delgado, who's also gone. So again, it's just like that first game. It kind of, I think it's a little bit of a gut punch if you're a Galaxy fan. It's like, dude, these pieces were so crucial to us now. While you still have the likes of Paintsel and Peck, Royce has now made his way over. Um, Again, there's just now like watching the series back, it may even ask more questions of this team.
Yep. And then moral of the story is you can't give Messi space.
Bro,
As
he's
a
inevitable. He's fucking inevitable.
as a Real Madrid fan, I can tell you, you can't give that guy even a foot. Like you can't give that guy any time to see his vision, and because the guy's gonna make you pay, and he'll pay and make you pay big time, as he did score the equalizer. Because once again, he's inevitable. But I think
Crazy, bro.
aside from that, man, I think from that game on, I think everyone was like, LA Galaxy are for real. I think that was one thing to take away. The team that had that was in the bottom of the table, not pure bottom, but still at the bottom, to come in and go toe to toe with the team that's supposed to win it all, and made a strong statement. And yeah, this would have been a great final. And then the fact that this obviously East and West they only see once in a season, every other season I believe, and to have that to kick off the year and to end it with Inter Miami and LA Galaxy, knowing that both they did not win that first match, knowing that someone had to come out on top of it. the storylines would have been ridiculous, but I mean, we got the final that we got. I'm not going to complain about it, but yeah, I think it was pretty cool to hear all that was being talked off by the LA Galaxy to say that they did everything they did was the right decision because it led to them winning the MLS Cup that year.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that, again, I'm really excited to see where they go with this narrative next. I feel like a lot of it will revolve around Greg Vanney and how, again, they had their moments. Like the Galaxy, if you watch the 2024 season in full, we covered it a lot on our channel at Goal TV. It's just like they have ups and downs. It's somewhat of a roller coaster, especially through the middle of the season where they would drop points to some teams that they had no business dropping points to. So my own team included FC Dallas, and so I think that there's just still ups and downs along the path to MLS Cup that I'll be really curious to see how they tee those up through the content, through the storytelling, because and again, even when some big moments happen, right? The emergence of Gabriel Peck and Paintsel and Joveljic, them being the big front three in this league that was kind of taking down defense by defense overnight. So yeah, man, I'm excited to see what happens moving forward. But no matter what, I think you do kind of get this sense of like we didn't win if we're Galaxy, right? We didn't win, but this is still better than anybody expected out of us. I think it's going to be a good season. It kind of just feels like that coming out of it
Yeah, it was one of those where we may have not won it, but you definitely got you earned our respect kind of thing.
for sure.
So I think that was a solid way to end that episode. And I think honestly, MLS Onside, keep this going, man.
Who is that guy?